By the way, Mary, hit record.
All right. So today, my friends, we have the pack-up artist with us. One of the exciting things about having Sonja here is many of us have issues with clutter and attachment around things, whether it's because of certain memories or whether it's like, well, what if I'll ever need that again? There's a lot of a charge around stuff. And so I thought it would be really fun to have Sonja come on, because when you can free yourself of certain kinds of stuff, it really energetically can help you feel better in your body, in your home. Things just flow so much better. And although I have not had the opportunity to work directly with Sonja, I've heard of Sonja from many friends. And Sarah Sickinator is one of them. She was one of our guest speakers the other day. And then another friend in this group named Stacy. And so I've had the opportunity to meet Sonja on a couple different occasions. And Sonja has so much energy and is so excited about what she does. She's so passionate that it makes it even more fun to talk about a topic that can be really scary for people. So yay, welcome Sonja, the pack-up artist. You can find her on the packupartist.com. I put that on here. But yeah, we have definitely people from a wide range of ages. And typically, you know, at least what I've seen with my clients, a lot of them, once we hit kind of around 50 or more, we're like, ooh, let's start thinking about downsizing, or we're going to switch gears. Or, you know, if you start a family and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I live in this small place and now I need all this stuff. I didn't want stuff. I wanted to be minimalist. So I just welcome and talk to us about this so that we can release some fear around getting rid of our clutter and opening up more energy in our lives.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it. Obviously, being that I have a business in this area tells you that I'm very passionate about it. And I feel like I should make a disclaimer and say first and foremost that just because I'm a person who hates clutter and purges, it does not mean that I don't have clutter. And if you look behind me, you'll notice that when it comes to pictures, I'm all about having pictures everywhere. So I'm not a person that comes along and says, you know, no clutter in your life, or everything must be minimalistic and it must be this and this. And I just think that much like exercise and healthy eating and everything, there is a level of moderation. And so we try to meet our clients where they're at rather than forcing them to be, you know, where they should be at. And so I know this is our fifth year. And the company has been great. I didn't realize that this was a need. I had no idea. My friends all told me that I should become a professional organizer because every time they would move, I would beg to pack their kitchens. And I thought, who would hire a professional organizer? But most of what we do for our work is really helping people when they're stuck, when they stare at what's in their house and they have some kind of big deadline, usually takes a big deadline. We hold their hand and help them literally and figuratively step over the stuff and figure out how to conquer it. So that's a lot of where my passion, I think, for the job comes from. But it's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual in nature, the way that clutter can affect you. And those are, I've learned so much. So I guess I could talk for hours. As I told Mary, she's supposed to like pull her nose or something, so I don't talk too much. But I mean, is there some way that you'd like me to focus? I could just dig in and chat, or if there's questions that people have along the way.
Well, I think we have a lot of good stuff. We had talked previously about what she might cover, and I think one of the biggest things that you have a whole big thing on kind of dealing with the clutter. Do you have a little bit of wisdom you'd like to share with people who are thinking of downsizing?
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
what are the top things that you hear from people who are like, I would like to downsize, but I am overwhelmed by the idea of having to deal with my stuff?
Oh yeah.
So like
Absolutely.
what are like the big things that people worry about, and then what would you
Sure.
kind of say would be
How I
helpful to
conquer
start
them?
to like either how do you help them turn it around so they can actually handle it, or
Yep. Okay, so the first thing I do, we give free estimates, and it's almost comical. I almost have like a routine down. You'd think I was a car salesperson, because when I go out to do a free estimate, inevitably in the first 10 minutes, whoever the client is, they go through this spiel that I think we all go through. Like, I'm so sorry. My house is such a mess. I really didn't mean for it to get this way. And then it's either, it's really my husband's fault. Somebody died and I inherited their stuff. I've had, kind of this whole, like, their shame comes pouring out. And I just joke with people that I have to have some counseling and be like, you are not a hoarder. And yes, there are hoarders out there, but they're like 2% of the population. You are an American, first of all, and we as a culture have a problem with stuff. And we as a culture also, I don't know that there's many places throughout the world that live in such large homes the way that we do. And you fill your space, so it's easy to buy things when you have a place to shove it away. And so I think that's the first thing I tackle with people is, let's get the shame out of it. We all have closets someplace loaded with stuff. I have a junk drawer, in every single room of my house. And I don't think it's helpful to anyone to point out to them how much they've fallen behind. So I think that's the first thing I do with people. The next thing we try to do is try to pull them away from their natural inclination, which everybody wants to start by going through pictures and paper. And I swear to you, if I could just shake everyone and say, please do not go through all of your papers and all of your pictures first. Save it for last. Because so many times that's where the memories lie, and that's where the details are. And it is a painstaking, exhausting process. And we just finished a job actually for one of Sarah Sickenator's clients, and her sister had passed away, and she was a guardian of several estates. It took us 5 days to go through 20 plus boxes of papers and receipts. And for us, it was exhausting. And those papers had nothing to do with us. So we always tell people, when you're going to start downsizing your house, don't look at the whole house. Find small success points. So linen closets, bathrooms, do things that you can do in less than 2 hours, because you're going to get exhausted. And for the bigger stuff, give us a call. So people, lots of different things drive them, but it always takes a deadline. That's what I've learned. It's just like weight loss. I hate exercising just in general. This is my exercise. But I've learned, and I'm sure most people have, that until somebody tells you, wow, you're overweight, or, oh, that dress doesn't fit, or a doctor says, oh, you have high cholesterol, I'm still eating Ben and Jerry's at night. Some people are more disciplined, but not me. So anyway, there needs to be some kind of a deadline in order for people, for the most part, to be successful. And that usually is something external, wanting to move, needing more space, whatever it happens to be. And so we try to think about what's realistic. And something I oftentimes will tell clients when I meet them with an estimate is, when you walk around your house and everything's in closets, it doesn't look like it's that hard. When you start pulling everything out of closets, that's when they start going, oh my gosh, I'm a hoarder. And it's like, no, we just have more storage here than they do in Japan, So that's why we tell people it's about dividing and conquering. And when you come to a really large space like a basement or something that has a lot of emotion attached to it, that's when you really have to step back and get reinforcements and support. So
great. So if we're kind of thinking about the cost of clutter, right? So let's say we've come to terms with, we have got to downsize, or we've just come to terms with, the way my space is, like, I don't even want to be in this room, or I don't like, especially now, right? Now when lots of us are homebound, lots of us are working from home, certain areas of your house you could have maybe just shut the door and not worried about, but now you need the space because you need a space that's functioning to work, right? Like, one of my friends that I worked with, she's a feng shui consultant. So again, it was about the movement and of energy. Yep. So I think about this a lot in my own home, because now with 2 little kids, we've got so much stuff.
Yep.
And I can just imagine if there's people who have bigger homes, who have a junk room, and all of a sudden they
Yeah.
either need it because they want to have a place to exercise or they want to have a place to really work.
Yep.
Um, so how does one go about, okay, now they've realized that this needs to change,
Yep.
and what would be, I know you had kind of said, like, what is the cost of clutter to like help not just the deadlines, but to kind of put it full circle, like, look at all the things that are happening with this stuff
Yep.
that are impacting you.
Absolutely. Well, okay, so the cost of clutter is an interesting title because it's got 2 or 3 meanings to it, because there actually is a physical monetary cost of clutter. I think about how many people I know, myself included, who are lucky enough to have somebody come in and clean their house. And I spend all my energy picking up after my children and moving things around just so that she can get to clean. And there is a cost that comes from your physical energy of having to move around things and push things. And, that is exhausting. So that's a piece of it. Another piece of it, of course, too, is the fact that, when you wake up in the morning, you walk into another room, what you see has an impact on your mind. So if it's okay, I'm going to tell you a little story actually about the room that I'm in right now. I just recently got married, blended family. And a year ago, I moved in with my now husband. He's a widower, and I am a person that purges everything. He is a person that purges nothing. It's very intense. And essentially what had happened is, after his wife had died, all of her stuff, they just kind of pushed to the garage, to the basement, to the back of places, because didn't know what to do with it. So of course I come in, and that's not gonna work. So I spent the better part of a year downsizing in order to find space for my son and I to fit. And it was hard. I mean, I could talk about that for a year. But what I also learned along with this is that we're getting ready to do a huge remodel. And now that the kids are home with everything going on with COVID, I needed a space where I could push it all up, where there were not, basketballs on my bed and t-shirt, every spot I created or cleaned up was being taken over. And so what I did is I tried to dream up what I needed to feel like I had a mini sanctuary. And we do this with a lot of our clients, because a lot of them don't have the energy to tackle an entire basement, but a corner of a room is a good start. So for example, let me see if I can do this. If you can see behind me, you'll notice that there's clothing right there. And that's like my laundry room, clothing, etc. And behind me, this is my spot, and this is my settee. And what I did is I took our makeshift closet that we hope to renovate, and I moved all of the stuff into, different contortions of what will be our master closet, to make room for my little couch. And nobody sits on my couch but me. I keep a full laundry basket on it at all times because it's my couch. And it's, so I've got my candles, I've got my books, this is my space with a locking door. And anything that's on my carpet, nobody. And it's such a small thing, but it really has made all the difference. Now, of course, everybody wants to be on it all the time because they can't. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is that sometimes when we say, like, oh, I want a fitness room, or oh, I want to do that, sometimes we're not being realistic to what we actually can make happen. And a lot of people will say to me, like, well, why should I hire you when I can just assume do it myself? The truth of the matter is that I can clean my house myself. Do I want to spend my energy that way? No. For me, it is worth every penny to have somebody come in and do that, so I don't resent my family.
I always told my husband, I was like,
yeah.
I think that this is cheaper than going to couples therapy to have someone come and clean our house, because like,
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say this, but I sometimes tell his mother, or at least I had in the past, like, you did him a disservice because you didn't make him do these things, and so yeah. So for me, I completely agree that if you can afford to, and you look at what you are paid to do the kind of work that you do, whatever it is you do, if it's similar, less, or just a little bit more, it just seems like, why not? Because you are opening up time and space for yourself and your family or your partner or whatever. And then you don't have to have those fights. Blamey.
The fun, that is okay. So I have I have to laugh because, oh, hail it, sister. That's all I can say. Welcome to my life. But the one thing I was thinking about is that my clients, over and over again, I've been shocked by the fact that the one thing people seem to be most appreciative of is that we haul away stuff, which I was like befuddling to me. I'm like, what? If we get it into bags for you to donate, what's the big deal? Like, and people have said, they're like, it will sit in my garage and then somebody looks through it and it's like a weed that just grows back into the house. And, when you go through things with somebody, it's a lot of emotional upheaval. And if you leave that there, mentally, physically, whatever, it's like leaving a big wad of hair in a drain. It just stops everything from moving. But when we get it out of the way and all of a sudden there's space, it's like it opens something up in a person. And I just, the one thing I always tell people, my number one rule, I think I wrote this before, I learned when I was in college. I was diagnosed with bipolar, and I was learning how to live with my emotions, and I wanted control so badly. And I worked with my therapist, and she's like, let's pick out a few things that you can do every day to set the tone. And the number one thing I do every single morning is I make my bed. And people, my kids, everybody's like, but it's a small space. It's a small space that I can control. That is a place that I can go to when my anxiety is bad. I make it pretty. I love pillows and whatever. And it's just, it sets the tone in my brain. Like I can tackle today. I can be successful. And it's just, some people work out in the morning. I sleep in and I make my bed. That's what I do. So it's if there's one piece of advice I could tell people, is that if more people made their beds, I think people would feel less anxiety. Ta-da! I solved the world. So
It is
that's
those little things, though.
it is.
If you've listened to me at all, that's what I'm about as well, right? Just find something little, but let it be simple, but let it have the same magnet, like the big effect of something that would take more time or more effort, or that you
Yep.
think is better than the little thing that you did. So something that I wonder about, so because you have, she sent me her notes. So when you tackle clutter, like one of the things that I struggle with, and I think that a lot of people actually older than me might struggle with this as well, is because I have an older mother. So my mother grew up during the Depression.
Yep.
And so I have a really hard time getting rid of things that are useful.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you have been part of any of these, but one of the things that has recently changed my life, because I found it, I have a dog right here that's in my face. And one of the things that has changed my life, because I don't want to let things go that still have use, right? I don't want them to go into a landfill. I try to be very mindful of that kind of stuff. And I've now part of this buy nothing group in my neighborhood.
Ooh, cool.
So yeah, you can look it up. Like some of them are on Facebook. There's a bunch of them. You can look for your neighborhood. It's just buy nothing.
Yeah.
And then you can put up there, like, I have a couch, I have a bed, I have a dresser, I have, and then you put a picture of it, and then people who want it can come and get it. You say, here's my gift, essentially. Here's what I have to give. Somebody can come, and then somebody can say, I'm asking. Like right now, I'm currently asking for dance gear for my daughter because, that stuff is pretty costly, and, they don't wear it for very long. So why not try?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
So for what advice, and you kind of touched upon this, I think, but like what other advice do you have for people? Because I feel like when I finally let go of getting rid of something that has a use that I didn't like, oh, I should do a garage sale, or I should do this, or I should get some money for it because it's still, it's like brand new. But like, I have to tell myself, you are wasting so much time, so much energy, so much thought, so much everything on this stuff when you could just be enjoying and living your life. And yes, $50 here, $100 there, $20 here, but is that worth it? And I feel like it isn't, but it's so hard to get yourself out of that place.
Oh man, you just explained like half of my job when I meet with people, especially Depression era folks, young people, is so often we kind of go through this conversation about, well, I have these things, they're worth, so much, or I got them, I had them so many years, this furniture is so solid, and I kind of have to do two things. The first thing is adjusting what people think something is worth, because it might be priceless to you, but its actual monetary value is probably going to be more disappointing and hurtful. So lots of people will want an estate sale. They'll want something of that. And what they don't realize is that if you don't have a significant, if you don't have at least 50 items in pristine condition that are worth over $100, you're going to pay more to do an estate sale, at least in my opinion, than get something back.
That's
So,
great. Thank
yeah,
you.
it's
That's
just
good to know.
yeah, and there's so many other options. In fact, one of the things that I've gotten really passionate about, and Mary, this is really exciting. The second we're done, I'm going to be going looking for this Buy Nothing. There is an app called Free Cycle that I've used quite a bit, which I think is sort of similar. I've sort of made a mental goal in my head that anytime we do a job, clear out a basement, less than 10%, that's my goal, goes into a landfill. And over the last 5 years, we've gotten really creative, because there are so many places that need stuff, but it takes time to disperse the stuff to them. And most people, it's just, the intention is there and it dies in the process. So for example, we work a lot with theaters, and we've had some great, I love the Lyric Arts Theater in Anoka. They have done some great things for my clients. I had this mid-century curved couch that we had to take a window out to get out, whole nother thing. But they used it for their production of A Raisin in the Sun, and they sent tickets to my client, and she got to go and see her grandparents' couch. Yeah, and those things, not everybody runs across those options, but because I have the space and the time, I can find those. The other thing we do, and I think this is something a number of you, if you follow my page or whatnot, have probably heard about my pickers. And my pickers are essentially people who are repurposers. And so many times I have to share with my clients, they'll have an old pedestal wood table, beautiful, but it's been banged around, it's been loved. A couple mismatched chairs, which are gorgeous, and in their day would have been worth, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Now you could get them for $10 at a garage sale. What I oftentimes will say to my clients is, look, if you can put your trust in me, I will take these things, I will keep them out of a landfill, and I have a whole network of people who will take these things and give new life to them. You might not want to see it because they might paint it turquoise, but they will find a way to make this into something good. And oftentimes for those Depression era folks, that is the hardest thing, is because there is that sense of kind of scarcity and I need to hold on to this. If I can change their perspective to purpose rather than money and do that, that seems to be the winning ticket.
We have a question.
Ooh.
Karen says, I'm stuck on paper. The only thing I seem to recycle is newspapers. I draw and do collages, so that's my excuse. We all have our excuses, Karen. We totally get it.
Yep. I've heard this one before. Yep.
So tell us, what would you tell Karen if Karen was your client and she's like, I got all the paper.
So wait, are we talking about a room where you walk in and you're assaulted with paper? Or are we talking about, well, I suppose she probably can't respond, but I'll just throw out a couple things for you.
Great.
First of all, whenever we sort, Susie, who is my unofficial partner in crime, she and I we think that we just feel that sorting is the most important thing in the whole wide world, next to breathing. And really what it comes down to is that people will keep stuff because, I could use this for something, but it ends up in a box with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
So what we've kind of talked about is, if you're going to deal with paper, you don't do very specific sorting, but you take all that paper that you have. If you want to keep it, it has to be sorted into something, and that forces you to deal with it. So let's say you've got, piles and piles of paper sitting there, and you're like, but I want to keep it. Well, fine. If you want to keep it, then sort it by color, sort it by something else, get a file folder. And if that's overwhelming to you, ask yourself whether or not you actually think, if it's overwhelming to you to think about actually having to organize it or sort it, it's probably going to be too overwhelming to actually turn it into art. I don't know that that's true, but I think for a lot of people that
I think the idea of just making somebody have to choose
Mm-hmm.
is really, that's a really a helpful method, right?
Yep.
Because if you actually are tasked with, okay, but you have to deal with it, you can't just leave it in wherever it is, then
Yep.
at least something will happen. So
Yep.
Karen did respond, and she
Oh,
says,
good.
my attempt on office and organizing memories.
Ah,
So
yeah.
those are definitely hard ones.
Offices look like they'd be so easy, but they are some of our toughest jobs because it's dense. Like you can go into a linen closet or a living room and it's, larger items or towels. Nobody really is all that attached to towels, but offices, taxes, there's all kinds of dispute. How long do you keep documents? Do you keep the front page, the back? I mean, I could talk about that for a week, but oftentimes if people are easily overwhelmed by clutter, if you're going to tackle an office, my suggestion for you would be to go take a box, like a copy paper type box, load up a whole bunch of things that need to be filed or whatever, and take it into another room that's less cluttered, in front of the TV, and organize that one box. And when you sort them, don't sort them by day and hour. You just get, utility bills, money, this. Start that way. Do it a box at a time. Don't try to do it. You'll kill yourself if you try to do it all in one day, or you'll end up at the end of it. Or you hire people like us and we help you through it. But got to throw a sales pitch in there, right? So
Definitely. Yeah. So, so speaking of that, like
Mhm.
there are certain things I am totally unattached to. And so I can go through my house and I get rid of them. So
Mhm.
like I'm really good at getting rid of all the clothes, or
Yeah.
getting rid of all, like, trinkety things or anything that's
Mhm.
around, wearing things, accessories, shoes. Like I can just get rid of it all. I've
Yep.
gotten so good at it that sometimes I get rid of all the things and then I'm like, and then I have to buy them again. But when it comes to other things in the house, like this office stuff, I think that it is an area, or like pictures, especially for people who grew up with photos and photo
Yep.
albums, or just like the idea of, I will make a photo album someday, and so they have all of the like containers full of
Oh
pictures
yes.
in the boxes.
Yep.
So do you have any kind, because I think ideally, if all of us had the time and the money and the energy for it, we would
Yeah.
like scan every photo and just put all the photos in like a one of those
Yep.
nice video things. Like, what do you think would you recommend, or do you recommend for people who don't have all the time and resources and energy to do that,
Mhm.
but like what would be something small? Because I know, I'm sure you have a bunch for your clients, because you have to be very imaginative with what people are willing and able and ready to do, right? But
Uh,
like run of the mill, like what would you
Run of the
say?
mill.
How do you deal
Okay.
with photos and other like basic papery
Mementos.
kind of, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so here now we're getting into the dirt. Um, I wish Susie was here. If you met her, she's so good at this kind of thing because she's like a crafty maven. But anyway, that's another time. So one thing I would say, first and foremost, is instead of going into some like a mindset of I have to get rid of stuff, I have to get rid of stuff. Instead of doing that, go into a mindset of sorting stuff. So let's say you went to Hawaii last year and you have, I don't know, stacks of pictures, or you have 15 rolls of pictures or whatever. What I would say is ask yourself, what were some of the specific things from the trip? We went scuba diving, we did this. And really, instead of trying to get rid of stuff, pick out the pictures that have the most meaning, that capture the most, and set those aside. And then oftentimes, instead of having people throw things away or whatnot, I'll say, okay, let's keep the most pertinent ones over here. Let's put these other, photos or whatever in a box. And we're going to put them in a box with other things that you haven't used in a long time. And we're going to put them in the garage. And, 6 months from now, you might be like, what the heck is in that box? And you can ask yourself, wow, have I actually used those things? Most often not. And it's instead of thinking I have to get rid of things, you're changing your mindset and you're saying, what, in the words of Marie Kondo, what brings me the most joy? What do I want to remember about that trip? The other thing I would tell people, something I learned to do, this is kind of a side note, but I hate having copies like pictures, so I do all of my everything digital on Shutterfly. But I did learn I don't like to throw away pictures either. So I've started doing things like on Christmas gifts and things like that. I find old pictures of my nieces and I take a picture and I write with a marker on it and I make it like their gift tag. I've made them into postcards if you're crafty. I give them to other people so that I don't have to feel like I'm doing them a disservice. So, you know, or if you have a person, was it Karen who does the collages? Is that Karen? Okay. So Karen, here's the thing. All those pictures, everybody call Karen and bring her all of your photos that you don't know what to do with, and she can make a collage out of them. And then Karen, I'll come over and help you organize all of your papers. How does that sound? So it's, and every situation is very individualized to each person. But I would start with that instead of talking about what to
You're not going to be asking me to make a collage because that will never happen.
No, you just drop a bag off on Karen's thing that says, you like paper, right? There you
go. Yeah.
Landscape photos from Hawaii.
And I think that's a good point, you know, kind of coming back to this whole idea of, because I've done this with my clients as well, because stuff is pervasive and it's not just, it does impact our health, right? Because if it's causing you stress and anxiety, it's perpetuating things. So we talk about this stuff a lot, but there are, you know, times where I will, like people in my life, it's going to get a little loud here, but people in my life who like I had my best friend moved and she is a big paper person. And she's very crafty. And she brought all the stuff to my house because she couldn't actually take it across the country. It was like the best freeing, biggest excuse she ever had to get. Like she had to let go major. Yeah. And so I got all this stuff and I was like, oh, it's all beautiful. And I had to be like, okay, but I'm not going to take this ownership of the fact that because she had sorted all the papers, it was amazing. So I just went to daycare and I brought boxes and boxes of art stuff and they were like really impressed. So it's like getting a little outside of the box, like you said, of is there a place that I can bring this stuff, you know? And I like this idea too, where I never let people, like this same friend, she always asked for help, which I was like, are you sure? Like, we're going to go into your closet and we're going to stuff everything into bags and then I'm taking them with me. Like you don't get to,
you don't get to second-guess yourself.
Yeah. So having that accountability partner to say, yeah, I'm going to take this stuff from you because it is hard. Like you might just have this inkling to go back into the bag.
Just because you might
just because
that one time.
So we gotta get rid of that. So we have another comment / question.
Sure.
All right. So Sandy, what guidelines do you recommend for keeping financial records? Is 7 years generally the guideline? So is that still the guideline?
Yes. Okay. So this gets a little complicated and it's kind of different for different people. So you have to adjust it to your comfort level. Some people, they feel like they need to hold on to every inch of their tax returns. What I've been told is 7 years, yes, would be good to keep at least the professional copy, you know, finished copy of your taxes. Now, does that mean you need to keep 6 boxes of receipts that are associated with your 2011? No. If you've had your taxes done professionally, if you have a business, that's kind of a separate deal that gets a little trickier. Something to consider with that in the future. As a business owner, I use something called Scanner Pro, and every receipt I get, I scan it onto my phone so I don't have to hold on to it, but I digress. But really what it comes down to is if I could tell people to go through their papers and just get rid of cell phone bills, bank statements, utility bills, those 3 things right there will eliminate paper in your office by like 30%. And all of those things you can get electronically. And all of those things are static. They're not necessarily, you know, you'll get your cell phone bill and for the most part, it's going to be pretty similar from month to month. And there's an outside recording of it. So rather than
can I have you repeat that? Because I put it in here. So cell phone bills, utility bills, and what's the other one?
And bank statements.
Bank statements. Yep. Because you can look all that stuff up.
You can look all that stuff up too. Yeah. And I actually do a lot of my bills. I kind of channel them through like a PayPal or something like that. So I can have a second tier, you know, group kind of going through them. But when it comes to paperwork with taxes, if you're nervous about it, just make sure you have the final professional, you know, folder that you get from your accountant or whatever, but you don't need the 16 boxes of receipts. All that kind of stuff has already been tabulated, unless you're a business, in which case I digress because that's messier. How's that for you?
That is fantastic. You guys, if anyone's still listening, feel free to keep asking any questions. So let me just look, because I know there was one
Yeah,
or two other things I wanted to
absolutely.
have you chat. So
there is one thing I was thinking of, if that's
yeah,
okay. So
of
you know how
course.
you were talking a lot about, you know, how like me bringing these papers and stuff like that to daycare facilities and whatnot, and you know, being able to do that, which I absolutely commend you for doing. One thing I have come across a lot is that a lot of folks are very well intentioned about wanting to repurpose things or, you know, give them other places, but sometimes their good intentions end up causing almost kind of more harm than good, if that makes sense. So for example, you might have a daughter and she has all these clothes and you want to pass them on to somebody else and who has a daughter also. So you bring all these clothes over, and what ends up happening is, you know, they want to be polite and they might keep one or two things, but now they have 3 bags worth of clothes that they, you know, so we're passing it along, but there are more efficient ways to share your things. And a lot of what I feel like I do with my clients is try to help educate them about the best ways to repurpose things. So for example, what a lot of people don't know, I call it like the dark side of donating, is that a lot of donation centers and whatnot, what we bring them, you know, speakers, old TVs, even clothes that haven't been laundered or have stains on them, they go, you know, in one door and turn around and they end up in a dumpster. They end up being sent to China. They end up costing oftentimes the nonprofits more than what it was worth to give it to them in the first place. So one of the things I try with my company is not only to be creative about where we bring stuff, but to really be thinking about, are you blessing people or are you burdening people with something? Because a onesie that's got yellow burp marks all over it, you know, yes, another baby could wear it, or you could, you know, wipe your car with it or whatever, but are you really blessing somebody with it? Or is it just one more thing that now they have to get rid of? So it's tricky that way.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think clothes contains, again, there's just so much emotion around stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We in our neighborhood are really lucky. We have a woman who is a tailor, and
Ooh.
her biggest, most exciting thing is she likes to repurpose clothes because she doesn't want
Ooh.
everything going into landfills. So
Whoa.
right now, one of her big things is there's a huge rack out front, and she puts sizes up, and she's like, just if it's nothing that you're going to use and you're just going to get it ready anyway, you can
Yeah.
just hang them as long as it's clean, hang it up.
Yeah.
She's like, you can shop, take whatever you want. If it doesn't work out,
Wow.
just wash it and hang it back up.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
so
You
it's
need to
just
give
like a
her my
nice,
card. I can hook her up.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because she does amazing things with stuff
Oh,
that, doesn't fit. Like somebody might find like a beautiful blazer, but it doesn't work for them, or a beautiful
yep.
dress, and she'll redo it for them. She
Yep.
doesn't work with new clothes. She only works with old clothes.
I like
So
your.
yeah, it's really fun. Okay, so we have another
Mm-hmm.
well, we have 2 comments. So one is, if you call the social workers at your schools, they sometimes know families in the school that are in need of clothing items,
Yep.
and they will pass them on.
Yep.
So not sure, yeah,
Yep.
with COVID, everything's a little bit more complicated, but that's something you can also consider, as long as,
Yep.
yeah, it's in decent condition.
I
Or
was going to say, the only thing I would say about that, and this is just from my own experience of working with things like that, is ask yourself 2 questions. And these kind of seem duh. Number one, if the piece of clothing that you're giving them is something like, if you received it, would you want your children to wear it? Or would you think they would be excited about it? That would be the first thing. And the second thing is, are you bringing them things that are relevant? Or again, are you bringing them something that then they'll have to pass along? Where there's organizations like Hope for Youth and Anoka who can take a very large quantity of things and do a much more efficient job than maybe one social worker in a school. So it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. Just follow through the train of thought with what it is you're donating.
and what was the name of that organization you just mentioned?
Hope for Youth in Anoka. And they do a drive. It's basically for adolescents, homeless teenagers throughout. Anoka has one of the highest percentages of homeless teens in the state, excuse me. And they do everything. They bring in, I've taken so much to them, jackets, sleeping bags. They disperse all kinds of toiletries, goods. It's an awesome organization. And that is a great place. You can bring them a lot of stuff. And if, let's say you have a 3X jacket that will only work with a certain kind of kid, one school may not have a person, but Hope for Youth has a network.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you. Because I mean, obviously we've got people watching that aren't in the Twin Cities,
Yes.
but realizing that, okay, we have this organization here, maybe there's something nearby you. So fantastic. So don't think, even though, again, this is in the Twin Cities,
Yep.
there might be something in California or on the East Coast, wherever you guys are located.
Well, Mary, there's one other thing I wanted to throw in here real quick before I forget. There is a website, and this is a Minnesota-based website, but I imagine there's other similar things. It's called www.donategoodstuff.org. And you can go to that. You can plunk in anything, sewing machine or size 15 tennis shoes, and they will list for you places, in the state of Minnesota, in this case, that would take that donation.
Oh, that's so great.
Wonderful. It's a great, great resource. And I highly suggest it. So donategoodstuff.org.
Cool.
And it's worth it.
I have 2 toddler beds. I've got like all the sheets. I've got all the stuff. Yeah, so this is great. So I did have a comment from Stacy. She said, you should tell them about my basement. Smile. I don't know what that was about, but I think that was something about the organizing of statements and memorabilia.
No, actually, in this particular case, Stacy and there were no statements, Stacy, no statements. No. I will briefly tell you that Stacy and I have been friends for 20 plus years, and she has many gifts that are a gift to me. And so I gave her back some of my gifts, and she had a plentitude of her daughter's toy journey over the years, you might say. And her basement, like most of us, became the landing ground for all of are they going to play with it, or am I going to get rid of it? So we tackled that bad boy, and she has been a busy bee selling stuff and making money off of all these toys. The best part of it, though, was that after we sorted out all the toys, we had to hightail it to get everything to the garage so that the girls wouldn't find it, so that they would reclaim it, which unfortunately at least one of them did, at least one of the things. But so now there's a bed down there, and her dad can come and stay in her bed, and I'm still bugging her because I really want to organize her office down there so bad. I just
Seems
can't.
like a no-brainer. If someone wants to come and organize your office, yum.
Just feed me chocolate. She knows this. She gives me free food, Sam.
Yeah.
So wonderful. So there you go, Stace.
So again, anybody who's watching, because we've got a number of people watching right now, if you have any other questions about decluttering, downsizing, about dealing with stuff, if you have those questions, go ahead and put them on there. I'm looking at my phone so that I can get them. And then I'm going to look at your notes, and you can look at your notes. Like, is there anything else that if they get nothing else from today, like you either want to hit it home or introduce a different idea? Okay, I have a question.
Okay, good.
But you can write it down if you're not ready to answer this because you have something else. But I'm thinking, I've worked with somebody in the past. This is now what you do. Now that you've been doing this for 5 years, how would you go about, like, if somebody said, okay, but how would I hire, like, if they're in a different state, for example, they're not here, they can't hire Sonja. They can't hire our pack-up artist.
Well, if they're in Hawaii, I'd be happy to be brought there to do it.
Right. Anyway. And if that isn't a possibility.
Okay, all right, fine.
So, like, what would you say they could be looking for in a person?
Yeah.
Like, because I bet there's variations on what people, when they say I'm an organizer, like what you do is very different than I think some other organizers. You take the shit. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm saying it. You take that shit away. You make sure that it's done. And a lot of other people say, here's how you do it. And they tell them, but it doesn't maybe happen. So could you tell them how to look for somebody and what to consider?
I can. That was a beautiful segue to what I was thinking of. You might notice, if I ever work with you, that I'm not a perfectionist, number one, and I do not believe that bringing my labeler into your house is going to make you a more organized person. When I go through your drawers or whatever it happens to be, I am not going to, use a labeler to write white socks, black socks, purple socks, and expect you to maintain that. That's like expecting somebody who hasn't walked on a treadmill in 15 years to be a bodybuilder. Just doesn't make any sense. So when you're looking for a person, if you're not, I mean, obviously come to me if you're in Minnesota, but whether it's me or somebody else coming into a situation, I would say, this is going to sound strange, look for somebody who is not a perfectionist. Because more often than not, the people that I end up working with are people who have perfectionistic tendencies. And what's so difficult is that when they do something, they want to focus on it and do it perfectly from start to finish. And that is where the difficulty lies. Because when you're doing these kinds of decluttering tasks, you have to be able to keep moving and you have to be able to sort more generally. So I would say if let's say you live in Texas and you're looking for somebody, you don't necessarily, or maybe you do, want somebody who's going to come in and make your cabinets perfect and everything labeled, because you won't be able to maintain it. You want somebody who can come in and help you implement systems and walk you through what is the best use of this space and how can we make this flow better, and I think that that's part of it. The other piece is too, so many of my clients just need to not feel judged. They just want to get the shame out of them. And here they want to tell you why they kept that porcelain cat or porcelain elephant, I don't know, for so many years. And then they want permission to say, okay, I can let this go now. So you need a person who's going to have empathy and a person who's going to know how to help you move through it.
I think that's perfect because I think, like you said, I didn't start this group and I'm all about unsubscribing from perfection for a reason. Because perfectionist tendencies, regardless of whether you call yourself a perfectionist or not, like it's so funny. Like I've seen people's responses even in this group who said before they entered, because they filled out the questions, they're like, I'm not even remotely a perfectionist. And then I look at like some of the comments and it's like, you do not identify with one anymore because you know that it's unhealthy. Yes. But you still have some behaviors or patterns or tendencies, and that's totally okay. There's no judgment. We're all trying to unsubscribe from it in order to heal, Yes. So I love that you said that, because it's true, because you were like, there's this whole idea of what is clean?
Yes.
What is health?
Yes. That's the other piece of it too. When you talk about what is clean, like I oftentimes people come to my house and they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, it could be cleaner. It could be whatever. I got my own shame thing going on. And then people will look at me and they'll be like, what are you talking about? I have 4 dogs and 3 children and a rabbit and a husband. Cleaning for us is not the same thing as a retired couple who have white carpet and nobody ever walks on it. It's a different thing. And I oftentimes find myself like feeling shame about that. And I have my own thing, but I think I'm a very clean person, but my level of clean is what works for us. And it's, so I do think that there's something about that. I don't like to call myself a perfectionist, although I do know that I don't think I'm competitive, but when I play people in foosball, I'm lethal and throwing darts at them if they beat me. So it might just be a whole bunch of denial I have. Not sure.
So I had this comment, and I think that maybe I don't know. So here's a comment. It says, when looking for someone to help, ask what they are doing with your stuff. I don't know. Do you want to know? Because if they're going to just get rid of it, no questions asked. Well, I mean, granted, as long as they're not dumping it on somebody's lawn.
Well, okay.
But like, they should get it away if you're getting it out of there.
That's actually a really, really good question, because what I think a lot of people don't realize is that if you're going to call like a junk company per se, there's a couple different, I mean, I could go on about this, but a junk company is going to come and they're going to take all of your stuff. And, I actually knew somebody who worked for one at one point in time. And he said, we're not going to go through it. We're not going to look for redemptive value. It's going to go from one to the dump. We're basically a mobile dumping company. Yeah. If there's other people too that will buy a house full of the stuff and then they will sell off as much as you can. And there is, there is room for that within that. There's different kinds of things too. I really think it's a really good idea if you're looking at a company, to ask them, how do they dispose of items? Do they have any recycling techniques? We take great use. I work with Green Lights Recycling. I work with both countywide different groups to bring in every piece we can, recycling dumpsters. I could go on. Those are excellent questions. If you live in Minnesota and your mom passed away and her house is in Nevada, go look on the internet and find out what are some of these companies and resources. So Is it's, oh, I got to stop myself. I could get all
Good.
passionate here.
So we have a comment
Yeah.
and could lead to a question.
Sure.
So everyone has heard of Marie Kondo now because probably the Netflix show.
Yeah.
But have you heard about Swedish death cleaning?
Oh, I have.
Basically for older folks, your kids don't want your china.
I love it. I love it. Is this also the thing where the Swedes are actually decorating their own coffins? Did you hear about that? It's just really hilarious. I love this concept so much more than Marie Kondo. I mean, she's so cute. She's lovely, and I get what she's doing. I have done the thing where I've gathered all my sweaters in a pile in the middle of the room and giggled as I said, does this bring me joy or does it not? So I'm not saying it doesn't work. I think her methods are great. They're not me, but they're great. Okay, Swedish death cleaning, amazeballs. And it sounds so, I've told some Norwegians about it and they stare at me as though I'm an alien, but this idea that the older generation can have more power. They don't have to feel, because a lot of times I think it is guilt of, oh, well, I can't get rid of this because my daughter might want it and she'll feel so da-da-da-da-da. You know, and oftentimes people will hire us because their children are not very kind about saying, I don't want that. That thing is stupid. You're attached to it. I mean, it's ouchy, you know, I do it with my own mother. So I think that there is definitely something, this idea of Swedish death cleaning is to say, no, I can have some control over this. This is my stuff. And I don't want my kid doing this. And also one little tidbit, and then I'll move it on. I told my parents, I've decluttered my mother probably many, many times. And I told them a few years ago, I said, you want to get rid of some of this stuff? I said, wrap it up for Christmas and unload it on us. Don't ask us what we want. You know, like you give it to us and you feel good about it. And then it's on us to get rid of it. And, you know, it's a lot easier for me to get rid of the Paul Bunyan metal statue that sat on my dad's desk that I have no idea why it's important than it is for her. Unfortunately, at Christmas that year, I ended up getting several presents, one of which was a stack of binders from my father's former business. So, you know, but it worked and it was hilarious and they felt meaningful. It was good. So there you go.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a big one. If you are, I've been given lots of things as my mother sold her home.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, as I told you, Depression era, like I grew up in a house of clutter. It was clean, but it was cluttered. Yep. And so, yeah, I'll be like, what am I supposed to do with all these Christmas ornaments? Like, I don't even want to deal with having Christmas ornaments. Like, I don't want to change everything over. I have she gave me a second set of dishes, which I was grateful for because I host Thanksgiving. Like, so I can use those, you know. Yep. But other random little things, it's like, thanks. And then I get rid of them.
We call them tchotchkes.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my biggest pet peeves, and I wrote a blog post about this once, is trip souvenirs. When, you know, your parents would go on trips and they would buy you souvenirs from their trips and come home. How many shot glasses from Florida, how many t-shirts, but then people feel guilty about getting rid of them because it meant something to their parents, even when they didn't go on the trip. It's just, there are, you know, I kind of have to ask myself, like, is your mom really losing sleep about whether or not you have the Hawaii shot glass she got you in 1996? No, she's not.
She probably forgot about it.
She doesn't remember she gave it to you. She felt guilty about going on the trip without you, which is why she got it. So anyway.
Probably. Yeah. So we just have another comment about, you know, a dad, they moved the dad out of his home into a retirement community, right? And they recommended someone to help move, and they helped get rid of so much stuff and helped with planning the space of the new location. And they even bought some of his furniture for their other clients. So it was this great experience, even though it was super hard. So I think that's another thing to say too, is when you are decluttering or downsizing, it could be a really great experience.
It can be more fun than people think it is. When I have my off times, I know I'm kind of weird, but to me, it's sort of like puzzling. Like, I'm obsessed with puzzles. I don't know. This is the year of the puzzle for me, but when you do a puzzle, you know, you sort the pieces into the categories and eventually it comes together as a big picture. I know it doesn't seem like it, but when you're going through your house, you're kind of sorting the things into the different little piles and deciding what you want your picture to look like. You know, you're clarifying and for me, my home reflects a lot of who I am. So like you see all these pictures, these are all my favorite picture frames and my favorite people. And I've been through a billion picture frames. These are the ones that stick because they're yellow or turquoise or wooden. And that's a process. But there were 20 thrown out in lieu of keeping one of these. So
Well, Sonja, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us
really,
today. I know Sonja will check out some of your guys' comments, and if you have any questions that came to you, feel free to go ahead and post them in there. She said she'd be happy to respond to them.
yeah,
Oh, we just got another comment. I'll read it because
sure.
Kim was one of the people who was definitely like
Hi,
talking
Kim.
about clutter and downsizing. She
Yep.
says, when I sold my house, I was down to the last weekend before closing and I just got rid of, oh, I remember because I saw her posting. She went onto Facebook and she just
Yes.
like, she put free on everything and
Yep.
people just came and they took her stuff and she was just like, it was incredible. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that story, Kim, because it was like this freeing experience when you finally let go of like worrying about the monetary possibility of an item. Because like you said,
Yes.
my desire for something is going to vary greatly between somebody else and they might be like, has no value,
Yep.
and so just allowing yourself to say, this is going to go to a good home. Like, I don't need to know what, I'm going to,
I don't want to know the
whatever.
home.
I don't need to know anything about it. It's just,
You
yeah.
know, I feel like if anybody who's ever run a garage sale can tell you that the money that you make from the garage sale is not worth the, excuse my French, pain in the ass
No, it
that it is to
isn't.
run a garage sale.
Right.
And I, over the years, it's like you might make $500, but yeah, you spend 5 days hauling this stuff everywhere. And more often than not, people are always disappointed with the money that they can get from something. So
Yeah.
pay it forward. The universe will pay you back in some other way. I promise you,
Totally. And I would also say, we had a comment that said it's so much easier to do this for other people than to do it for yourself. And it's true. That's why what we said kind of at the beginning, the cost of it,
Yep.
if you, it out like paying and investing in certain things doesn't, even though it seems maybe like a lot of money, the
Yeah.
investment of opening up your time and your life and feeling like the release of all that heaviness,
Yes.
it's worth every penny, right? So like,
Absolutely.
it is why you hire a Sonja. It is why you hire somebody who can help you with the organizing, even if it's somebody like you're hiring somebody who you really know. Like
Mhm,
Sonja had mentioned before we got on this call, is that
mhm.
she is going to help a friend of hers with something that we probably wouldn't typically think to ask an organizer. And she was like going to just help her friend because it's her friend, and her friend's like, no, I'm going to pay you because I know that this is what you do and I value your time and I don't want that energy to feel, because a lot of us, we need to honor each other's effort and time, and then you'll take it more seriously, you know
Yep.
so yeah,
And
I really
I
love
would
that.
do it for free. That's the sad part is I get really excited to do it. I just have a mortgage I have to pay too. So that's
Yeah.
the other part of it.
Yeah,
But yeah.
there's a lot of learning that go on when you have a business that you're really passionate about and you want to help everybody.
Well, and Mary, I don't know if it's appropriate, but I have been putting together kind of a fall discount
Oh,
package. I
yes.
mean, if I could offer that to just the folks that are in this group, I would be happy to do that. We do a 3-hour decluttering session, and two of us come out and we can tackle a kitchen and office. We're like little Energizer bunnies, and you just point us where to go, and boom, we do it. So I'll have more information about that I can send you to provide.
Perfect. Yeah, you can post it in here so that everybody has seen the
Yeah,
things.
lots of times people will use it either as a kickstart to get started on something, or if they work, let's say they're going through a room and they're just like, I'm just done with this. We go
Yes.
in and we finish it off. So
I love it. I love it. So we have all enjoyed our time with you, Sonja. Thank you so much. And if you know of anybody, like any ladies or women in our group, if you know of anybody who needs Sonja's services, please send them her way. Her website is The Pack-Up Artist. We'll be really great if we can keep supporting each other. And then I'll just do a little plug if you've lasted this long or this is when you're seeing the video. If there's anybody you really think is doing great work to help empower women, especially, but empower people, then go ahead and share their information with me because I want this speaker series to keep going and I want us to be able to highlight people like Sonja and what they're doing because Sonja is doing a lot. She's not just helping people unload their stuff, she's also taking into the consideration the greater good and making sure that things, if they can go to, be reused, recycled, or become more sustainable, then she is. So if we can keep lifting her up in her business,
Thank
then that's what
you.
we want to do.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll see
Thanks,
you next
everyone.
Tuesday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.